Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Good afternoon, June 30th. Just want to note before we officially start the meeting, I just want to do a shout out to all the graduates and teachers this year. I was at my son's graduation yesterday at Cora. Very proud mom today. But this past year has been very difficult, and it was really apparent how happy all the grads were and the teachers. And I just want to say to all the teachers out there, I mean, the past couple of years have definitely been challenging, and we wish you a very safe and happy summer, and congratulations to all the graduates this year from both post-secondary, secondary, and elementary. So everyone have a safe summer. And saying that, remember, there's going to be a lot of extra kids on the streets with bikes and walking. So to the public too, just be a little more conscious that we're going to have more folks on bikes and around, because kids are done school as of today. So wishing everyone a safe summer, and we're going to get the meeting to order at 1:02. We'll start with our land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, specifically the Garden River and Batchewana First Nations, as well as the Métis people. And with us today, we have Ian McKenzie, we have Rick Webb, we have John Bruno, we have Chief Stevenson, we have Deputy Chief McLaughlin. We have a guest, we have Malcolm White, our CEO at the city. With us today too in our boardroom is Brian Kelly from the Sioux Star. We have Lisa Hodgson and Lincoln Ludit, and we also have a guest. We have Tom Gervais from the ministry. Thank you for joining us today. As well online, we have Dan Gray from Sioux Online and James Hopkin, and Councillor Shoemaker is going to be joining us shortly via video. So we're going to call the meeting to order at 1:03. And do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, we have our minutes from our last meeting for May 26th. Any corrections, any comments on the minutes? Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Rick and John. Resolve that the minutes of the regular meeting on May the 26th as presented be hereby approved. I need a motion to accept our agenda today. Rick, John. Resolve that the agenda of the regular meeting of June 30th, 2022 as presented be hereby approved. Wonderful. I'd like to now take it over to CAO Malcolm White. There's been a lot of discussion in the media as well around this table concerning police facility. So the facility is a city-owned asset, part of the asset management portfolio with the city. And I wanted Malcolm to come in to go through sort of step-by-step the processes, things that have already been done. I think, Rick, you and I met a good 2 years ago, I want to say now, with Ian as well, with Shelley Shell, with police services, and with Malcolm to discuss sort of the beginnings of what does it look like and what is the process. So I wanted the public to know that it has been part of the conversation and that there is a process regarding facility management. So Malcolm, the floor is yours. And thanks for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll, at the risk of repeating myself from past meetings, both with the board members and with Chief Stevenson and Deputy Chief McLaughlin, I'll just do kind of a high-level sum up, and I'll note to you where I think it needs to be going in the near future and midterm. Certainly the need for a new building needs to be sorted out as far as what you need as facilities to offer policing services. Currently, certainly there's been identified deficiencies in your existing building, and you're looking at what you've got and where things are deficient. I know the chief and deputy chief are also looking at things from the point of view as to not just what's needed now, but what's needed down the road to provide policing policing services in Sault Ste. Marie. Those things will take into account not only how policing is done today, but how policing is going to be done down the road. And it's going to look at elements such as our community, which is, as we noted, pre-pandemic and now hopefully post-pandemic. We are a growing community. Our population is expected to increase by about 10,000 people over the next 15 or so years. And that's really just to replace the baby boom generation, which I'm the tail end of, moving out into retirement. We'll still be in the community, but we will need to bring people into the community in order to fill those jobs. And that's a great thing. We also always look forward to economic growth in the community. That looks very positive in the near and midterm, and we're likely to see growth that way. So that'll have to be taken into account when staff and third-party expertise is looking at what the needs are and how that is best positioned. So that work is already underway, I know, at the staff level with police services, and will continue to be done. That work will also have to look at what are the best solutions. Is the best solution still just one centralized headquarters? Is there a need for a main site, but also some satellite sites around? I don't know. That's what your work will come to grips with, and it will start to look at what are the best locations for a new facility if that's what's required. So police services staff and the board will work through those processes and will sort out what's best and what best fits the needs for police services here. Eventually, you will get to the point where you have a concept solidified and you're ready to start putting some actual cost estimates to it, some actual design. And there will be the need to assess how we're going to fund something like that. So the landscape right now is there isn't really a lot of senior level government funding for police facilities. And that's why you see even in Northern Ontario, police services that are a lot further down the road and are ready to build, but they're stuck against that wall of having no other sources of funding except the municipal tax base. I'm not sure that's going to change. Certainly it's something we can always lobby for, but we need to prepare for the eventuality that that's not going to be there. In preparation for that, my suggestion to the board is that as you prepare the upcoming year's budget and we go along in the future, that you start building in an incremental build of funding that's eventually going to pay down long-term debt for a new police services building. What that does is it starts building that into the budget so that it's not a big sudden shock when we do get to the point of taking care of a new facility. So it lets it build incrementally over a period of years. And what it also does is in the years before it's needed, it gives you some seed money to conduct the design studies you're going to need, any other third-party expertise. It builds that in and you're able to utilize that funding in the here and now to get that work done while you build it up to the level that you're going to require eventually to service the debt that would be required for it. The other thing to keep in mind as you go through the processes of developing the position is always to keep in mind that the Police Services Board and police services staff will be focused on what is needed for police services and what best fits your needs. And that's how your decisions will be focused. Eventually, you will have an ask of City Council to approve a budget that includes a new facility or even approve these incremental builds along your way there. And what you need to keep in mind is City Council will look at the material that's been developed by police services staff and the board, but they'll also have some additional lenses to put on their decision on it. So they'll be looking at it from a bit broader perspective. How does it fit in with the other needs of the municipality as a whole? Where does it fit in? And what's the public view? What are the questions the public may have of it? So it's going to be a broader discussion, and it's helpful if you keep that in mind as you work towards things that you'll be able to answer, not just the pure police services questions that will be asked, but from a broader level, the types of questions that will be asked by the community, in large part through their elected representatives on council. So it's helpful, I find, sometimes to think of, in the end, that that's what the discussion is going to be. So start preparing now for that discussion. Certainly city staff are ready to work with police services staff along the way, both in budget preparation and working through the asset management part of it. That generally is the broad picture that you'll be wanting to work through. As we've noted, work is already underway at the staff level on looking at things. It's also a bit of a difficult time right now when we're talking about capital items. Everyone knows that the moving out of the pandemic has caused a real shift in things. We have supply chain issues. We have capacity issues as far as people being able to do capital work. I was at a conference 3 weeks ago that noted that in Ontario this year, municipalities have been able to complete an average of 55% of their capital programs for the year. We're doing much better than that in Sault Ste. Marie, but that's a sobering aspect to the work. You are also seeing a lot of really, it's the order of magnitude of the cost increases we're seeing is quite something. You have to understand that for construction companies, and that they're having to build in uncertainty that they have with pricing, because it's very difficult to get certainty on the pricing of materials. They're having to build in the uncertainty of whether they're going to have the labor force and the subtrades that are required. And they have to, just the timeline with supply chain management is also an issue. So they're having to build in contingencies when they bid on the projects. And they're having to make sure they have an overall contingency that protects them, being able to successfully complete the project. All of those things are very high right now. I certainly think over the next year or two, things will settle back out and we'll get to whatever our new normal is going to be, and we'll be able to forecast with a lot more certainty. But it's very difficult to do that right now.
Agreed. Yeah. Yes, agreed. Thank you very much, Malcolm. I'll have some comments at the end, but if anyone has any questions for Malcolm. John?
Malcolm, in the past, there has been some funding bombs that come in from the government. I like the way you put it, like we should be a little bit ready with regard to, the budget, putting money aside and seeing money for design and implementation purposes. Would City Hall look at that as a unique situation so that if that monies from the different levels of government were made available, could we move quickly on it? And that's for instance, yeah, kind of question, yes.
Certainly we would always keep that in mind. And while there have been, certainly in the past couple of years, some unexpected funding, it's come with criteria that you can spend it on. It did widen a little on the most recent former gas tax funding, but it just widened a little, and it didn't include police services facilities. So while we will always look to that, once we get a little further down the road and we're getting closer to a decision, we can certainly redouble lobby efforts with our provincial and federal members to see if there are any avenues. And it is a barrier right now for police services in Ontario to get facilities built. It definitely is, and that's why you've seen some of them get stalled. The need is there. Everything's been figured out as to what's needed, they can't get over that financing hurdle.
Yeah.
It's difficult too for municipalities because while it is for the police services facility and it is for part of their budget, the debt repayment, it also uses up the fairly significant component of the debt capacity that a municipality is allowed. And that is a lens that council will look at it with as to if we're using up that much, what else are we going to be able to do to meet the other needs? On the positive side on that, Sault Ste. Marie is very well positioned as far as long-term.
Yeah.
We're the envy certainly of my fellow CAOs in Northern Ontario as far as our low debt level at the moment.
That's most certainly. Rick, did you have any more questions, John?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Rick?
Kind of strikes me as we've gone through this.
Yeah.
That the struggle is that no one on the board has this expertise, and certainly internally it's also difficult for the service to have the expertise to do that. And so I'm wondering, based on your comments, if it's fair to say that we should get some third-party assistance with much of this, just to help us with guidance and doing a roadmap. Because I know when we've done this, in some ways it's been fits and starts because we struggle. We're learning as we go on this. It's not our expertise. And so I'm wondering if that's maybe wise that we not only build that in, but get on that. I think that'll help us a lot.
Certainly that's the approach we need to do with virtually all of our facilities. We need to get third-party expertise in. Certainly you've been having the discussions for a bit. I think certainly the pandemic has caused a delay in where we are today as compared to where we were 2 years ago. But that would certainly be my advice to you, that you will want third-party expertise. Certainly Chief Stevenson, Deputy Chief McLaughlin can talk with their peers in communities that maybe are a little further down the road on that as far as finding out where they used third-party expertise, because they all would have done it to one degree or another, and share that roadmap. But yes, I would agree.
Yeah, and we do have that entire report from St. Thomas.
It was, well, it really
Which was,
demonstrated.
yeah, so we do have sort of like a comparable, in terms of what other, services have done and what the consultants have offered. So,
And as the chief knows, City of Thunder Bay and Police Services and Sudbury Police Services are the ones that are, a little further down the road. They're ready to try and get there, but they're running into this issue of financing.
yeah. Ian, did you have any questions?
Yeah, just a comment. We've been discussing this facility for at least a decade and a half, and the weaknesses in it, the amount of money we've poured into it, well over $100,000 a year for the last 15 years. And I appreciate your report to us, Malcolm, but I don't see us moving forward with what we've just heard today. Other communities have secured new police departments, and we have inquired, as to what they have been doing and how they secured their facilities. I think we should continue to do that, because I see this, Malcolm's talking about a couple of years, economically it might get better. If you knew the amount of politicians that told me over the last 50 years since I arrived in Canada, a couple of more years and we'll just about be there, and we're still waiting.
Well,
So I'm not sure that we're going very far with the concern we have here with the police facility.
I appreciate the comments, Ian. I think the primary thing is that we don't have a succinct plan right now, and that's what we've been working toward. And certainly with the pandemic, that has sort of stalled some of that, especially in terms of costs and things like that. And, you take a look at Thunder Bay, and we have their communication strategy that they did. They did a community engagement and communication strategy for their building project back in October 2021. So we haven't even done that yet. So, I think it's a point of, this has been an ongoing discussion. There has been meetings, staff have been working on, I think it's still, Ben is doing it. Ben has been looking at other reports, such as the St. Thomas one, and he's gone through other reports in terms of facility management planning, in terms of what does it look like. And I think that now I think we're at the point where we need to do that. And that was going to be my comment, that community consultation. I met with some folks, not yesterday, the day before, just outside of the Soup Kitchen in James Street. And they wanted to talk about it. And they said, we see this as old school where you have several precincts. So that community engagement piece was, don't have one building, you need to have a few throughout the city. That was that community engagement piece. So we still haven't done that yet. So I think that's really important for something of this size. And it's really also, it's not what I say or you say or Ian or John or even the chief. It's really what do the officers need to do their job and into the future. We're going to be taking a look at how is technology being used in future policing and things like that. So it's not just one bricks and mortar solution. I think it's taking a look at, okay, this is how we're doing policing now. How are we going to be doing policing in 20 years with population increase, with different technologies that can be used in policing? How does that look? And it could be a hybrid approach of several locations. It could be one location, but that's not our decision. I think it's really the number one most important contributor to what is needed are the people that are in the cars patrolling, that are keeping our community safe, and the people that are in this building. That's our number one. Our number two is that community outreach piece, and with community partners as well. That's really key. So, and the reality is costs right now are astronomical, and supply chain is difficult. I just had to wait 6 months for kitchen cupboards. So, we know that that's a reality. So I think we're going the right way. I think right now it's let's speed it up into sort of those next steps. And it's our responsibility as the board to ensure that we have the means to do so. And that's going to come out at a budget. So that's our responsibility, is to make sure that we can fund and move forward with this project. So that's the other piece as well.
With all due respect to Madam President, it's been probably 2 years since I remember at one of our board meetings, and Rick was involved in it, where we had indicated, listen, our priority as far as the buildings go should be brought up on a meeting. Every meeting we should be talking about the building and what we've been able to accomplish and where we've been going, and that seems to have fallen off the table. And I'm not just going to opt out by saying, well, it's COVID. We were still having meetings during COVID, thank goodness, and progressing along. But as far as the facility, occasionally it came up, but it wasn't what I had expected. And I don't want to be speaking for Rick, but he had indicated that we should have a monthly update on what's happening with regards to the building. And that there was other things that became more important, and it slipped off the table. And I don't think it should. I think there should be an update on what we're doing on a regular basis at each of our meetings.
Well, I think there has been.
Occasionally there has.
Ben has been able to attend and speak to that. And we also just had a facility tour and a discussion after that. So I wouldn't say that it's dropped off. It certainly, I don't think has, but it's also, resources. And we rely on Ben, and, that has been, there's been definitely other things that have had priority, but Ben has been in communication, I think, very regularly concerning what he's been working on and the research he's been doing. So maybe not to the level that perhaps all the board members can appreciate, but I think it certainly has always been, and correct me if I'm wrong, has always been, a point of discussion, whether formally or informally, when we've gathered. So Matt, do you have anything that you want to add?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was just going to say that we should continue down the path of getting the plan in place so that if that's community consultations, if that's getting a service provider to start a report on, a building services facility report or whatever they've done in Thunder Bay, I think we saw, in St. Thomas we saw. We need to be moving those pieces along so that we get to the point where we can have the discussion of, okay, can we get funding from the province, or can we get debt servicing to do this? We're far away from that point, but we need to be working to get to that point. And we need to, get all the pieces lined up so that we get, once we've got a design and a report on the needs of the facility or facilities, as you mentioned, then we'll be in a better position to do a go or no go on the facility at that time.
Thanks, Matt. Chief, did you want to add anything?
Just follow up on what many of the board members have suggested. I'd be more than happy to start an action item by looking for a third-party needs assessment for the next facility. I'll check with our own budget folks and see what we can scrounge together. And I think by having a third party, which I think even Malcolm mentioned, is where you need to go, so the biases are removed from it, and community consultation can be part of that assessment, where they manage those issues, so it's not the police service or the board or council influencing it. It's what does the community need? And then the next step is, now let's do a needs assessment. They interview my team, my officers, the board, they interview council, where the city wants to put it as a result of that community implementation, and give us a design and a number. And I think if you would give me that authority to do that, I would be more than happy to start that process, get a third-party assessment. I'll report back to the next board meeting to say, this particular group have been chosen to do it with the board's input, of course, and we go from there. And that way, there's clear steps given to me what I need to do to get there. Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
Would you put forth that motion, Rick?
Happy to, and I just wanted to comment. I really appreciate what the chief just mentioned there. A really important comment that he made that is important for all of us is that removing the bias from this is really important, because when you get into this type of facility and community policing, there's a lot of people that can come to the table with an agenda, and it's best that we do what's best for the community and best for policing. And I think that's one of the great things we read from some of those reports in St. Thomas and Thunder Bay. It red flagged all the pitfalls that many communities have fallen into, where the end result was not good. And so I think that's really important. So I just thank you for mentioning that, Chief. And I'm happy to put forward that motion.
Okay.
And I think that's where we need to go to help us all.
Agreed. Matt?
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to support something along those lines, but I really think it has to be an RFP to see who can provide the service to the board.
It would be an RFP. Yeah. Okay. So
I'll second it.
John's going to second. So Sarah will put forth a motion authorizing Chief Stevenson to procure an RFP regarding facility consultation. It's moved by Rick, seconded by John. All in favor?
I do have a question before we get to there on the process there. So will the chief bring us the RFP before it's issued so that we can review what goes out? I realize that takes us into September, so maybe there's some logistical issues there. Or will he issue the RFP and bring us the results in September?
It can be an RFP. I've done these sort of things before, Chief, and I can go through it,
Absolutely.
and then we can circulate it via email before it goes out.
I wonder what Malcolm's thoughts are on whether the city's purchasing department needs to be involved, given it's a city facility.
I can take that back and just double check how that works with our purchasing process, and I can achieve a fairly quick answer
Yeah.
on that.
So I think I would be, yeah, I guess I'd be happy to leave the authority with the chief to deal with Malcolm if Malcolm determines that purchasing needs to be involved, and to do it, you know, through the service if purchasing doesn't need to be involved.
Yeah, this is an operational matter. We're authorizing the chief to do the work, so the chief will do what he needs to do to ensure that it is compliant.
Just for clarity purposes, so I see two functions coming out of this. One is community consultation, and then the second is needs analysis.
Correct.
So we get both done in the one.
Yeah.
And we'll do, as you mentioned, Councillor Shoemaker will make sure that the board has the RFPs in front of them, one RFP with many proposals, and we can go from there.
Exactly.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Get to that retirement.
Yeah. All right, Chief, you're next. Communications and reports.
So the first report you can see on your screen is the Police Service Board. Just one second here. I'm not good. I apologize. Yep. So you can see from the board account ledger that in terms of decreases, we paid out the Sioux College, that was February.
Yep.
In May, there was a proceeds of crime deposit of $7,900. I have no further comment on that.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Nope.
We are going to have a finance committee meeting
Yep.
In a couple weeks. I won't spend too much time on it, but taking a quick review, we can see that our actual year end right now, we're at, in terms of year to date, 33, and we're at 59% spent, almost 60% spent. We're halfway through, and then part of the issues for that, as you'll see further, is our overtime expenses are pretty significant given the occurrences we've had to this date. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I know the finance committee will go over that
Yeah,
in more detail
we
and have
will.
a more thorough discussion.
Yeah.
And I am sort of interested in time, so if I'm going too quick, let me know. It is time of the year. So I'm going to take you to our overtime, which I just mentioned. And these are always relatively intuitive. And you can see in April of 22, we spent 96,000 in overtime. We got that down to 82 in May.
Yeah.
If you look at the comparator of 21, it was 144. We're down to 82. So those are good news stories in terms of how we're trying to manage overtime. If you look at our cumulative running total, you can see we're at 453. This time last year, we're at 449. So we're relatively close in terms of our budget spend, given that we're 4 months through the year. If you go to the next one, which is our 3-year staffing shortage overtime costs. Again, we brought it from 25,928 in April to 15,000 in May. So we brought her down 10,000. But as you know, these things fluctuate based on occurrence workload for that month. I'm going to just jump straight now to our occurrence workload. And instead of doing the April to April analysis, I'm going to give you the April year-to-date comparative between 21 and 22. Just bear with me.
Yep.
So Lincoln's got it up there. Okay, so calls for service, we've been down 4%. If we look comparative between 21 and 22, we went from 98.31 to 94.33, relatively on track in terms of occurrence workload. Our crimes of violence have reduced. Robberies last year, this time were 34. This year they're 21. We're down 38%. Sex assaults were 34. We're now 27, which is down 21%. big news story here as well is our crimes of property, our break and enters are significantly down from 265 this time last year to 176 or 34%. And you'll see that reflected all through the business, residents and
Yeah.
other. Theft of motor vehicles are also down from 50 to 39, showing a 22% decline. The other piece of that, which doesn't totally affect the overall numbers of property crimes, however, is shoplifting.
Shoplifting is really up.
Went up 49 from 180 to 268. And in discussion with my command staff, a lot of these things are related to alcohol thefts as well as gas thefts, given the increase certainly from the gas side. So, obviously we're taking steps to deal with that, but the good news story is overall we're down in property crimes significantly. Other motor vehicle collisions are up from 443 to 672. Obviously, comparative from last year, there wasn't a lot of mobility or
People
as
are
much.
out. People are out.
Certainly, people are out moving around, which is excellent news to hear. So that'll be the statistics for the Sioux. When we go to Prince Township, we see year-to-date they've had 19 occurrences in total, which is comparable to last year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty well. Any questions on the statistics?
Anybody? Rick?
Just your thoughts, Chief, on why you think the property crimes are down? What is that? Just good prevention? I know in the past you were mentioning a lot of the work that your team is doing on talking to business owners and just trying to get a sense of why you think it might be down.
I think one of the factors is, as you know, in the last collective agreement, we went from two-person cars to one-person cars, a hybrid approach, which the board approved. And a part of me does say, from doing this for 36 years, that the more officers that are seen out there, simply because you're in more places at once, given that you're not doubling up, may be a factor in that. Certainly, I think moving out of COVID stuff where people are out more mobile, there's more eyes and ears, people aren't sitting at home as much. I think that's another factor. But, as we know, policing in and of itself doesn't control crime rates. It's the economy. Look at, inflation now is 7%. Hopefully that doesn't impact us, but there's a lot of variables that come into it. Those are the top two that I think impact that, sir.
Yeah. Also, there is private security patrols downtown. So that could also be, and the Downtown Ambassador Program has started quietly on June the 1st. And I spoke to one of the workers, and it seems to be, they seem to be helping in terms of, sort of assisting people that are needing help. So, and there is a lot of outreach happening. So that could be possibly helping as well with some of the
I've
big hunters.
noticed a lot more security that companies are having. Like, you go around the dollar store now, I went to two of them yesterday, and outside the store, within 10 feet of the store, there's security standing, which wasn't there before. And I even asked one gentleman, how long have you been here? And this is my first week. No, but how often has security been here? This is our first week. So I guess there was people going in and stealing stuff, and how could you get a hold of them? By the time you contacted the police, they're gone. But with security outside, it's having I think it's having.
Yeah, there has been definitely more security for sure with some private enterprises. So, yeah. But
There
anyways,
was a beautiful piece on local television last night about somebody who went in and helped himself to a 40-ounce bottle of vodka. I would never be able to understand that, not when there's scotch in the place. But anyway, they had such a clear picture of this guy, from his waist up. I mean, if you knew him, you would definitely be able to report him to Crime Stoppers. I mean, it was a brilliant picture. And he even had the stuff in his hand.
yeah, and that's what the chief said. A lot of the shoplifting is due to alcohol and gas. So yeah. So we know that.
But vodka?
Vodka?
Well, he had single malt to pick.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll never understand that.
I'd just like another shout out for the ambassador program as
Yeah.
well, following the chair's comments. myself and Inspector Greco had a wonderful meeting with Annette Kadajimaki. And it is a wonderful program.
It is.
Has people that are dedicated, walk in the streets, see somebody in crisis, can get them what they need. And we are now forming an even more solid relationship with them where our officers, our comm center will have those numbers. So when we deal with
Yep.
somebody in crisis, we can get them to there as well and avert further issues related to follow-up investigations. So a
Good.
big shout out for Annette and her team. She
Yeah.
did a wonderful job. And I can only hope that it expands in this community.
I agree. I agree. All right, our next one.
Next is police complaints. We've had 4 to date as of May. All of them you can see were not picked up or followed through with OIRPD.
Mhm.
And we're actually down 2 compared to this time last year. Of course, is also a good news story. We're, in terms of incidents from April to May, down from 10 to 7.
Yeah.
Firearms pointed 7 to 4, firearms drawn 6 to 2, and lethal use of force options 6 to 2. So those are good news stories in terms of when we've had to utilize our use of force options. The travel log is, as you can see, as you know, the world opened up
Mhm.
in May, and many of these places that we weren't going before, we're now being asked to attend, is to get the collective knowledge related to justice issues on a variety of issues. And you'll see our command staff, our people, our team, whether it's executive and or more technical type training, we're certainly pushing that through to make sure our people, as per the act, have the appropriate training.
Yeah.
Appreciation notes, 3 really good ones here, and this is my sort of favorite part of my presentation. In April, a complimentary email from Women in Crisis talking about the gratitude, quick response, and professionalism from several of our officers on an assault call. Business owner commending our officers at a storefront call. He wanted us to know that he appreciates everything they do. And another one in May, Constable Paquette, in dealing with a break and enter, and the complainant / victim felt that the personal interaction with this officer made the whole situation that was very terrible for them much better in the end. And I realize those aren't shocking, but it is nice to hear, because there's lots on the other side as well.
Yes.
I'll pass it over to you for item number 10.
Anybody have anything they want to, before I go? Okay. Increase to complement. We had a special board meeting on June 2nd, 2022. The board held an emergency meeting where the following motion was passed. It was moved by Rick Webb, seconded by John Bruner. Resolved that the board approve an increase to the base complement from 135 to 138. And it was carried at the meeting. So just wanted everyone to know. So there will be some more officers out on the field, which is a good thing. And thanks to the chief and the deputy chief for doing the work that you do to ensure that we are well-staffed and that our city's safe, and that we avoid those high overtime costs. So that was a very well thought out presentation to us in terms of the savings. Yeah, set Matt, I see you. So thank you for
Board Chair.
for doing a very thorough deep dive into all of that. So we really appreciate it. Matt?
Thanks, Lisa. I was just going to ask the chief if he could provide for information, on the public agenda or on as part of this public meeting. This is the first increase in complement since when?
The first true increase has been since 1998.
Wow. Okay. Well, it was like Lisa said, it was very obvious from the presentation the benefit of it, and thank you for that. And I was happy to support that. And still am.
Thank you.
So Chief, maybe if you want to just give a high level of the long-term cost savings in increasing complement.
So from a statistical perspective, in the last 5 years, we've found crimes of violence weapons, assaults, homicides increased. On weapons alone, over 80%. Use of firearm and a call has been up in that area as well, because it's a weapon, obviously. So the stats were holistically pointing to the fact that all communities are experiencing an increased amount of violence directly related to the illegal drug trade and trafficking.
Yeah.
And so when we look at, we want to be a proactive police service. We want to be able to get to your call related to a property offense as much as we have to go to a violence offense. However, a violence offense takes 3 times the resources and time to properly deal with it. Obviously, these are life and death situations, first of all, for my members, secondly, for the public. And so they both are huge issues for us to be concerned about. And so the data was there simply to say, let's have the board look at this reasonably. Let's look at the highs and lows, and we did that. But from a financial perspective, I can say that, when you saw what we're spending per month on overtime, and it ranges anywhere from 70 to 80,000, and some spikes 100. Well, that amount of money could be better spent in putting that into our base and hopefully reducing those overtime costs over time. So when we look at that amount of money, I think we were spending ballpark $1 million in overtime. That's 6 full-time officers overtime. So we're taking a reasonable approach to it. I appreciate the board's understanding of that. I really do. And I think as we move forward, we'll look at our needs analysis, we'll look at the statistics, et cetera, and go forward. So once again, from command staff, thank you very much to the board and this community.
You're welcome. And I also want to just add that it did not affect this year's budget, which has already been approved.
Yeah.
So we did it within budget, adding the 3 officers. So, we have to service our community, and we also have to be fiscally responsible. So in working together, we did that.
Excellent balance.
Yes, thank you so much. New business. The only new business I have is, this is my other hat on, the Grocer for Good hat. We are doing a free community barbecue on Thursday, July 7th, and I want to thank the chief. We will have officers present to do some great community outreach. It's going to be at the former Neighborhood Resource Center patio at the corner of Gore and Albert. All of my colleagues are welcome to come help flip some burgers. You just need to wear a hat. You have to wear a hat.
What's the date again, please?
Thursday, July 7th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'm super happy. The officers are always very attentive on Gore Street, and thankful that the charity that I'm involved with can support an outreach opportunity for police force. And my colleagues are also welcome to come flip burgers. And I'm going to be sending an email to my fellow city councilors too, to invite them to come flip burgers as well. So that's the only new business. And I'm really happy that that we can have some police presence there that day.
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful.
Glad to be there.
Maybe Deputy Chief will bring his guitar.
The burgers or guitar?
I'll flip the burgers, you bring the guitar. Okay,
I know that was a huge draw last time.
a huge draw. No, it's true, it was. Our next meeting date, unless we feel that we need to meet, but right now we're September the 29th. Rick's like, thank you. But if we feel that we need to meet in between, we'll do so. But Finance Committee is going to be meeting in July. So as always available via email, certainly. And I need a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a question, Madam Chairman? We discussed several months ago, and I don't know if it ever was enacted, about cameras being installed at both the eastern side of the city and the northern side of the city, so that we could check license plates coming in and going out.
The cameras are in, aren't they? They're in.
They are there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted an update on that. That's good, and it gives us an opportunity to spot if it's an illegal license plate that we can react to. Good.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, they're in.
thanks for,
They're in. Okay, 1:50 p.m. John,
I'm with it.
move it. Second, Rick. All right, we are adjourned. Everyone have a safe and happy summer, and we will be moving into caucus.